Mental Health Momentum, a Silicon Slopes podcast. I'm Dr. David Morgan. I'm a licensed psychologist and the Director of Mental Health Awareness here at Silicon Slopes. And on this podcast, we talk about mental health issues in business and beyond, and we look for solutions as well. Let me introduce my guest to you today. This is Dave Barney. Hi, Dave.
Hi.
Dave is the CEO and co-founder of Elizachat, an AI mental wellness platform supporting teens in schools and the general public. Dave has more than 25 years experience building AI and machine learning systems, including over 10 years at Google, where he taught machine learning courses to Googlers, and has spent the last 6 years working in leadership roles at startups. Dave and his co-founders started Elizachat a little over a year ago after seeing firsthand how conversational AI can change people's lives for better at a different startup they worked at together. Dave studied AI and machine learning at Stanford University, earned an MBA from the Marriott School of Business, and studied computer science in his undergrad at BYU. So our connection is we did a mental health town hall, I don't know, year and a half ago or something. You watched the live stream, and then reached out to me and said, hey, we've got this new thing, Elizachat, going. Would you want to be on the clinical advisory board? And so and you're our first out-of-state guest, so thank you for flying to Utah.
Yes, happy to be here.
So this is our first in-person meeting too. We've done a lot of Google Meets before this.
We've worked a lot over the last year plus together. This is the first time we meet in person.
Yes. I'd like to give people a chance to talk just about their own experience with mental health, either their own struggles or just their exposure to it, because obviously the stuff you're working on now is heavily related to mental health. So was there anything personal that moved you in that direction, or was it just seeing a need overall?
Yeah, there were a couple personal things that really drove me to that. In a different non-work setting, in an ecclesiastical setting, I worked for several years sort of counseling people and seeing sort of the rise in mental health among youth particularly, but among adults and everything, and really wanting to be able to, but also not being trained and knowledgeable enough to help as much as I'd like. I also have had a close family member attempt suicide, and then a really close family friend take his life, and then all the guilt associated with that you feel like you miss something.
Right.
And so all of that together, just like there's gotta be something we can do. We can, could be able to apply technology. I mean, it's the way my mind works. How do we apply technology to solve a human problem? So that's really kind of my experience with mental health, was just being surrounded by and almost overwhelmed by the need of loved ones and people around me, but feeling inadequate to help.
Right. I think if we had asked the question 25 years ago, in a crowded room, how many of you know someone who has a mental health issue? Maybe 10% of people would have raised the hand, and now I don't think there's anyone who hasn't either had the experience themselves or had a first degree relation with someone who has struggled with mental health issues for whatever reason. People ask all the time, why is it so much more an issue now? And I don't know the reasons. And even if we knew the reason, I don't know that it would necessarily lead to a solution. We have solutions. We'll talk about solutions today. But it is something, it's here to stay. It's something that we have to deal with.
Yeah, I think it's the mental health epidemic is trending up, but there's also an increase of awareness.
Right.
So it may be in our minds trending faster than in reality.
Correct.
It was, like you mentioned, 25 years ago it was there, but it wasn't talked about.
Right. And I think 200 years ago, I'm not sure it was even really there. I think it's a function of like almost today, the way we live our lives today. When you farmed your land, if you woke up depressed one morning, what were you going to do? Well, you went out and you collected the eggs and you milked the cows before the sun came up, so you could get out to your land once the sun came up and plow it all day long and nurture it so that you could survive, literally not die during the winter. And so those things weren't an option. But with the increase of technology and some of the ease that we experience now, it's possible to have our mental health issues affect us a little deeper and still survive, because we can go to Walmart or order something off Amazon or something.
Yeah, the way I think about it, and there's a really good book called Lost Connections, if you're familiar with that. Johann, can't remember the last name of the author, but I think two things are happening. Lost connections. He talks about lost human connections, lost connection with nature, lost connection with spirituality, lost connection with each other. So technology's gotten in the way of those human connections. But another element is, and this is my non-psychologist professional view, but like anxiety is, the way I view it, is being overwhelmed with all of these things, these fears and these concerns that we don't have any ability to do anything with. Well, one thing that media does is I can be hyper aware of every problem around the globe, racial issues, political issues, every injustice, starvation, everything wrong in the world. I'm hyper aware, where, like you said, 200 years ago, I was aware of what was in my immediate community.
Exactly.
But we don't have the ability. So we're aware of many more problems than we're in a position to do anything about.
Yeah.
And so that creates an anxious situation.
Yeah. I remember a close friend of mine who had just come home from, like, it was 2 weeks in Hawaii, and he'd had a great time, but he was so fired up about a political issue. He was so mad about something that someone had done. And I said, and we talked, and I said, okay, but what can you do about that? I mean, that was a done deal. There was no writing your senator or anything like that was going to change anything. It was literally something that was done. And he reflected, and he thought, you're right. But yeah, you're right, because we're so much more aware of these things, and then we become so upset about them. But then there's nothing we can do. Yeah. So anyway, it's a good time to be alive. I'm not saying we need to go back to,
No,
I like being able to live till I'm 90 and be healthy like that as well. So you've been an entrepreneur for a while now, and I know you and I have talked just before this and in our associations together. What do you do to manage your own mental health? I like bringing this up with entrepreneurs because entrepreneurship is stressful, can be very stressful.
Well, there's a lot of good resources out there for self-care, and there's a lot of things like, the big things that we think about from a business standpoint that contribute to mental fitness, sort of preventative mental health care, is making sure that you're sleeping, making sure that you're exercising and eating right, making sure that you're balancing work life. So like there's a lot of resources there, and those things are all very helpful. For me, the biggest thing is, because I think what I'm personally most susceptible to, and I think entrepreneurs, is that feeling of being overwhelmed with everything that you have to do, or feeling anxious that you're not doing enough, or that you're not going to succeed in the way you think. And sort of back to our earlier conversation about anxiety is this fear of, or being overwhelmed with all of these things, many of which are outside of our control. So for me, the biggest sort of awareness that's helped me the most is when I'm feeling overwhelmed, first acknowledging it. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Then I need to look at all the things that I'm worried about and split them between the things that I can do something about and the things that I can't. Like entrepreneurs worry about the investment market. They worry about, the way customers are thinking and market trends. And you should be aware of those things, but there's no point in worrying because you can't do anything about it. Right. But there's a lot of things you can do. So first splitting those into basically two lists and literally making a list, everything that's on my mind. Okay, what are the things that I can do something about? What are the things I can't? Okay, let's throw the other list away. Now here's the list I can do something about, and then even breaking it down. What's something I can do today, right now, to make this situation better? So for me, I always feel better when I'm taking positive action. So when I'm feeling that like anxious, overwhelmed, like I don't know what to do, it's okay, I just need to figure out what it is that's bothering me and what can I do about it right now, and then take action. And that's how, for me, that's how I feel better. On top of all the other important things we need to be doing with exercise and sleep and making sure we have loved ones in our lives. And those are kind of like the baseline. Right. But I think the specific entrepreneurial thing is forget about all the things you can't control. They're meaningful. I read about market trends. I want to be aware of those. I can't change the economy, but I can change my product. So focus if my energy is going on things I can't control, that's just wasted.
Exactly.
Focus it on something that you can actually do something about.
I love that idea of taking the list and dividing it into two halves, because that you mentioned emotional energy. Emotional energy is a perishable commodity,
Yeah.
and it is a limited commodity. It's just like physical energy. It's just like financial capital. And if you just said, "Well, I'm just going to buy everything I see every day," you're going to run out of money. Most
Right.
of us are going to run out of money, right? There are some people who are not going to run out of money, but most people will. If you said, "I'm going to run everywhere I go," at some point you're going to become exhausted. You're not going to be able to go any further. But people view emotional energy as if it's just sort of this limitless trove of resource, but it's not.
Yeah.
It has limits. And so if you choose to invest emotional energy in something you can't control, that's fine, but it literally is wasted energy. And then that's less energy you can invest in something else. And then you wonder why you're burned out or why you hit the wall at the end of the day emotionally.
Yeah.
You have to view that as a resource and then say, okay, given this current list of issues in my life, where am I going to focus my energy? And like you said, if you can eliminate those things where the energy literally just goes in a bottomless pit.
It's true. And all those things that you care about that are maybe outside of your control, whether it's a political issue, a social issue, or a family member that worries you, really the best thing you can do is be the best you and the most successful you, which puts you in a position for influence. If you want to change something in society, build something successful, and then you have more influence.
Right.
So it's almost like in the short term, ignoring those problems so that you can focus on the things in your control will long term give you more resources and influence to address things you care about.
100% agreed. So, okay, this is interesting because I want to talk about Elizachat, but at the same time, I want to talk about this connection thing that you were talking about, this lost connection, because one of the criticisms that, and rightly so, that has been leveled at social media is that it's increased the number of connections, but it has decreased the depth of connection that we have with people. And we really do need deep connections. We don't need a bunch of plants with no root system, because
Right.
those don't survive. We need 2 or 3 plants with very deep roots, and those are going to survive whatever happens. Elizachat is a way. Well, tell us about what it is first, and then, because I want to try to strike a balance here, because when people understand what it is, they'll go, wait a minute, how does that develop connection? So
You bring up a good point that technology, it's called social media, which is kind of an oxymoron because there's not really anything social about it. But human connection is sort of the key to long-term mental health. We're in a place where we still deal with a lot of stigma. It's still we've come a long way, but stigma is still the number one reason why people don't get mental health help and support. What Elizachat is a conversational AI, clinically trained, intelligent service that you can talk to about the things you're going through, and in a very guided way, it can provide you the mental health support you need. In extreme cases, if you're struggling from major depressive disorder, general anxiety disorder, or something, Elizachat will recommend you see a human therapist.
Right.
But Elizachat's really designed to be preventative. In the mental health space, most of what we think about with mental health care is what's reactive.
Right.
Therapy, counseling is reactive. And it's important and it's there, but we don't do a lot as a society in the preventative space. Like mental fitness is the way we think about it.
You're right. And you and I have talked about this earlier. I remember a few months ago, you showed me a presentation on that, and I had thought about that before, but it hadn't been formulated that way. But you're right. I don't think there is a lot in the preventative mental health space. There's a lot in the secondary and tertiary space, right? But in the primary mental health space, there isn't.
Right.
Like how do we stop the problem before it starts instead of reacting to the problem once we recognize it?
Right, exactly. And what I like to ask therapists and counselors is, if you could rewind the clock in your patient's lives by 5 to 10 years, what would you do differently with them than you're doing today?
Right.
And so that's like Elizachat. That's the idea, is Elizachat is a mental fitness service to help you to develop those strengths to kind of nip in the bud the problems that are emerging, and then when you do need help, point you in the right direction, all in a clinically guided way. But you say, isn't technology part of the problem? Why are we solving it with technology? There's a couple ways to think about it.
Yeah.
First, there's a concept and a principle taught in therapy that's called meet the client where they are.
Right.
And particularly if we think of teens, and you say, well, yeah, the smartphone and the associated apps is the primary cause, and you want to put another smartphone app on their phone to address it, it's like, well, first of all, that's where they're spending their time.
That's right.
So good luck trying to rip that out of their hands. But if we can provide a service that can meet them where they are and get them help and guidance, then that's like the first thing. This is not designed to replace human connection. We always say strengthening human connection through AI. The way that it's designed, if like a teen, and I'm using teen because our initial focus is on teens, but like a teen's having a conversation with Eliza, and it'll say things like, you should really talk to your parents. And then the teen might say, I can't talk to my parents about this. And then we'll explore, well, is there someone else in your life? Is there an extended relative, a coach, a counselor at school? And we'll help the teen explore their resources to identify someone. And if there truly isn't someone they can talk to, they at least have something that they can sort of get some guidance from. But the whole goal is to try to point them towards human resources. But then like I mentioned before, stigma, that's still the big barrier. And if you think of middle-aged men, maybe blue collar, where there's a huge mental health problem and they're not getting help, but there's this service that very anonymously I can download privately. Maybe my partner doesn't even need to know about it. No one knows, and I can at least sort of start getting stuff off my chest, and then it helps me recognize, wow, you really need to see someone. This is serious stuff. And then so it's a good way to start, or I just need to work through this, and maybe in a preventative way, like, wow, that was helpful. I was able to talk through that and work through it, and I feel like I'm in a better place now, like I'm okay.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to describe it. There's a doctor that I follow regarding physical health, and he says the best type of exercise is the one that you'll do. And it's true. And now, to be fair, if I sat down and talked with him about my specific situation, he'd say, well, you should probably be doing this, you should probably be doing this and that, you should do more strength training, you should do this as far as cardio goes. But he says, if you're not going to do all that, and the only thing you like to do is ride your bike, then ride your bike.
Right.
Then get out and ride your bike, at least do something. Friend earlier was talking about meditation, and she said there's all these meditation apps out there, and I thought about telling her the best meditation is the one that you'll do, right? The one that you'll do. And so Elizachat, in a way, it's saying, look, this is the way that we're trying to at least start a conversation. So here's this youth who doesn't want to talk to his parents, doesn't want to go see a counselor at school, but is okay sharing his feelings with this conversational AI, which then, like you said, has been clinically trained to recognize situations. So if it's just like talking him through, the stress of the day, that's one thing. But if it's the person saying, look, I'm really depressed, or I don't feel like I belong here anymore, it's trained to say, okay, who can you talk to?
Yeah.
Right.
And in those really serious situations, it will activate emergency services and make contacts to get them the help they need. But, it's not where it starts is not where it ends. And what I mean is the goal is not for Elizachat to be the only solution.
Right.
But if that's what it takes to open up the conversation. So here's the example. I've worked and counseled with a lot of youth over the years, but I'm also a parent of 8 children. And so I've done, just even as my experience as a parent, advice for parents or anyone with teenagers, if you need to have a difficult conversation with a teenager, start it over text.
Yeah.
Start it over text. Ultimately, you need to have a face-to-face conversation. But sometimes when you confront a teenager, an adult confronts a teenager, they just close up. I'm not going to talk about it. But if you can text them and say, hey, FYI, like your teacher called today, we need to talk about this, like what's going on. And you can begin that conversation over text. They're not caught off guard. They have time to process and think about it. Those will ultimately lead to better face-to-face conversations. If my son comes home and I say, hey, come, I need to talk to you right now. I got a call from your school. And all of a sudden he clams up. And so where we start is not where we end. And so Elizachat is this low barrier, low cost barrier, low stigma barrier, low accessibility barrier. If you're in a rural area without professional resources, it's this low access barrier that democratized across all income brackets, culture stigmas and everything, that anyone can begin the conversation, start to get support and help, and get pointed in the right direction. And if someone has major mental health issues, ultimately they're going to be needing to sit in front of you in your office in a clinical setting. But most people aren't getting the help they need. It takes, on average, the Attorney General of the U.S. says 11 years after mental health symptoms develop before people get help.
It's not crazy.
That's insane. So in that 11 years, a lot of bad stuff happens in their life. Anything we can do to reduce that barrier. So, there's a lot of anti-technology people out there, and I'm actually pretty aligned in that view. Like, I'm always, we're not big screen users in my home. I personally don't have any social media other than LinkedIn, which is professionally, but I don't use any personal social media at all. But we got to start somewhere. And that's what this is designed. Where we start is not where we end.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that's so smart, because starting that conversation, like kind of cracking the barrier there, is what's necessary. And we have to meet them where they're at with that. And I think part of the problem, and like you said, stigma is one of the biggest reasons that people don't seek mental health treatment. But if the more we talk about it, that tends to destigmatize things. The more educated we get about it,
right?
And even these conversational AIs, they can help educate about this. They could
psychoeducation.
Exactly. Yeah. If someone says, I've heard that depression is, lasts forever and there's nothing I can do about it. Well, we could say, that's actually not true. Let's hear some facts about depression you might not know, right? And get some truth in there, so that then that changes the way that they see their situation as well.
From the data that we have, the studies we read, the three biggest reasons people don't get help is: number one, stigma; number two, cost; and then number three is accessibility. Yeah. People that live in areas where there's not access to professional services. And technology has the opportunity to just wipe those out. It's not designed to be, and should never be, a replacement for people, but it can do so much to get people in the funnel, in the system, to start getting help.
Yeah. And I think it's going to require just a shift in thinking overall. Our children will do better at it. Our grandchildren will be amazing at it. And just in approaching this differently, it reminds me of, it doesn't remind me because I wasn't alive, but the first cars and the blacksmiths that must have been thinking, oh, this is crazy. What are we doing here? We ride horses. You ride horses. You have a connection with your horse. Who's going to shoe the horses? What are these beasts, these mechanical beasts that are rolling around, right? But yet we've adapted to that. I'm sure the first television, people thought, well, this is crazy. Why aren't we just getting together and talking? Why am I looking at someone so far away? But we've learned how to adjust those things and say, let's make this a part of us, not all of us. Let's not change everything dramatically, but let's see, how can this most have the best positive impact on the human experience? And we'll find that there are going to be some cases, like we were discussing earlier with AI, there's some things that AI, we're going to find out, is not very good at. And we're going to abandon those in 10 years time or whatever. But there's some things we're going to say, this is amazing at this, and it's really beneficial. And I think that these talks about mental health and just helping people understand things, I think that might be a huge benefit.
And one area, and you probably have opinions on this as a professional, but one area of AI that I think is a really, really bad idea from a mental health standpoint is these AI virtual girlfriends or virtual companions. And I think that's where people are legitimately very concerned. Yeah. I even heard the CEO or founder of one of these companies say that their mission is to solve human loneliness. And I thought that's the scariest thing I've ever heard. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that we're not associated, like when you think of those things, that's overtly attempting to replace human connection with technology versus strengthening human connection with technology.
Exactly. The Elizachat is not constantly, but regularly referring people out. So what about your friends? What about your family? Who could you talk with about this? Those sorts of things. Whereas these people, these AI individuals, the goal, they're not saying, hey, you should talk to your girlfriend about this, right?
They want to be your
They want to be your girlfriend. They want to be your boyfriend, right? That's the difference. Is it's designed to be a closed system, whereas Elizachat and hopefully some of these conversational mental health things will be more open system, just saying, this is what I can help you with. This is the limit of what I can help you with. you're going to need to talk with someone else about this.
Yeah.
I can at least get you, a third of the way there. Then the last mile is going to be your friend, your counselor, your coach, whoever. Whereas these closed loop systems I'm going to be your everything, and you'll never have to leave your room again. And that's devastating for connection and mental health.
Right. Yeah. And it's one of the things that we're concerned about, that we're constantly monitoring is how much our users are using Eliza. And most systems, you want that power user that's always on. We actually don't. So if someone seems to be developing a reliance on Eliza, so we haven't seen that yet, but we're aware of that as a potential and want to do everything we can to avoid that.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. We were just saying earlier what an amazing time to be alive, and just these technologies that are I think are gonna be very, very helpful to everyone. So thank you for coming all this way and talking about this.
It's a privilege. Thank you for having me, Dr. Morgan.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for listening today. Remember that change starts with you, and together we can increase our mental health momentum.